BP dropping, we're losing him. The monitor alarm screamed through the operating room as blood pooled around Dr. Harlow Reed's steady hands. I need more light. And everyone shut up, Harlow commanded, his voice calm despite the chaos. The exposed brain before him showed the rupture he'd been hunting, a tiny aneurysm hiding behind critical tissue. One slip, one microsecond of hesitation, and his patient would die on the table. Doctor, Reed, we're approaching 7 hours, the nurse reminded him, her voice tinged with concern. And we'll go 17 if that's what it takes, Harlow replied, without looking up from his microscope. This man has 3 kids waiting for him to wake up. I won't be the one telling them Daddy's not coming home. Across the operating table, the anesthesiologist knew he hadn't worked with her before, met his eyes. Unlike the others, she didn't look away from his intensity. She held his gaze, a hint of something like challenge in her green eyes. 2 units O-neg standing by, she said, her voice clear and confident. Take your time, Dr. Reed. I've got him stable. Harlow nodded once and turned back to the delicate work before him. 3 more millimeters, 1 perfect clip. Suddenly the bleeding stopped. The monitors steadied. There, he whispered, more to himself than the team. Got you, you little bastard. 2 hours later, Harlow Reed stripped off his scrubs and stepped under the hot shower in the doctor's locker room. 9 hours of surgery, standing perfectly still, concentration unwavering. Another life saved. Another impossible case conquered. He let the water pound against his tense shoulders, washing away the strain of the day. At 38, Harlow Reed was already a legend at Sacramento Memorial. His colleagues called him the miracle worker, though never to his face. His patients called him a godsend. The hospital administration called him their most valuable asset. His tall frame, perpetually perfect dark hair, and startling blue eyes only added to the mystique. He looked the part of the brilliant surgeon, and he knew it. As he dressed in designer slacks and a crisp button-down, his phone buzzed with a message from Eliza. Baby kicked through my entire lecture on Jane Austen today. Apparently someone doesn't appreciate 19th century literature. Dinner at 7, love you. He smiled, typing back quickly. Our kid has good taste, running late, surgery went long, 8 instead. The elevator doors opened to the hospital lobby, and Harlow nearly collided with the anesthesiologist from the OR. Up close, she was striking. Dark hair pulled back severely, sharp cheekbones and those unsettling green eyes. Dr. Reed, she extended her hand. I don't believe we've been properly introduced. Vanessa Thorne. I started last month. Her handshake was firm, her skin cool against his palm. Good work today, he offered, professional but reserved. That was a tough case. I've seen tougher, she replied with a slight smile. Though not many surgeons who could have handled it like you did. Your reputation precedes you. Something in her tone made him pause. And what reputation is that, exactly? The best hands in neurosurgery west of the Mississippi. The man who doesn't lose patience. The doctor who can see what others miss. She tilted her head slightly. Plus, they say you're impossibly arrogant, but I didn't see that today. Just confidence. Harlow laughed despite himself. Well, Dr. Thorne, it seems you have me at a disadvantage. You've heard all about me and I know nothing about you. That's easily remedied. Coffee, perhaps? There's a decent place across the street. The invitation hung between them. Harlow hesitated, his phone suddenly heavy in his pocket with Eliza's message still displayed on the screen. Another time, he said finally. My wife's expecting me. Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. Disappointment? Calculation? Before she nodded politely. Of course, I imagine she's anxious with the baby coming soon. Harlow frowned. How did you know my wife is pregnant? Vanessa laughed lightly. Hospital gossip. Small world, Dr. Reed. Everyone knows everyone's business. She stepped into the elevator he'd just exited. Until next time. As the doors closed between them, Harlow felt an unexpected ripple of something. Interest? Unease? He couldn't place it, but shook it off as he headed to his Tesla in the physician's parking lot. Their apartment in Midtown was filled with the scent of garlic and tomatoes when he arrived home. Eliza stood at the stove, her 7-month pregnant belly protruding beneath one of his old Harvard Med t-shirts. Her auburn hair was piled messily atop her head, reading glasses perched on her nose despite not reading anything. She always forgot they were there. The great surgeon returns, she smiled, turning to kiss him as he set his keys on the counter. Her lips were soft, familiar, safe. Sorry I'm late, he said. resting a hand on her swollen belly. "How are my girls today?" "Your daughter is practicing her gymnastics routine on my bladder," Eliza laughed. "And your wife is exhausted from waddling around campus all day." He led her to the couch, taking the wooden spoon from her hand. "Sit. I'll finish dinner." As he stirred the pasta sauce, he watched Eliza absently stroke her belly, her expression momentarily clouding with what he recognized as fear. This pregnancy had been hard-won after 3 devastating losses. Each miscarriage had nearly broken her, had nearly broken them both. The last one, at 16 weeks, had sent Eliza into a depression so deep he'd feared she might never emerge. "What did Dr. Winters say at your appointment yesterday?" he asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "Everything looks good," she replied, though the worry didn't leave her eyes. "But she wants to see me weekly now. My blood pressure was a little high." Harlow frowned. "How high?" 140/90. "Not terrible, but higher than she'd like." "Preeclampsia?" Eliza sighed. "She said it's something to watch for. I'm trying not to obsess." But they both knew she would. After losing 3 babies, every twinge, every symptom became potentially catastrophic. Harlow abandoned the sauce and sat beside her, pulling her close. "This time is different," he assured her. The same words he'd repeated like a mantra for months. "She's strong. You're strong." Eliza nestled against him. "I know. I can't help thinking about everything that could go wrong." "That's my job," he smiled. "Professional catastrophizer. You're supposed to be the optimist in this marriage." She laughed softly, the tension easing from her shoulders. "How was your day? Save any lives?" "Just one," he replied. "Massive cerebral aneurysm. Guy was a time bomb walking around for years without knowing it." "My hero," she murmured, only half teasing. Later, lying in bed beside his sleeping wife, Harlow found himself thinking about Vanessa Thorne. There had been something in her gaze that bothered him, a knowingness, as if she could see through his carefully constructed persona to something underneath, something he preferred to keep hidden. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from a number he didn't recognize. "Impressive work today, Dr. Reed. If you ever want that coffee, the offer stands. V." He stared at the message, pulse quickening. How had she gotten his personal number? He should delete it, block the number. But instead, his thumb hovered uncertainly over the screen before he finally set the phone back down without responding. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with the usual lunchtime chaos when Chief of Surgery Marcus Donovan dropped into the chair across from Harlow 3 days later. "Reed, we need to talk," he said, his normally jovial face serious. At 62, Donovan was an institution at Sacramento Memorial, respected by everyone from the janitors to the board members. "I'm all ears, Chief," Harlow replied, setting down his fork. Donovan leaned forward, lowering his voice. "We've had 3 unexplained post-op complications in the last month. Patients recovering normally and then suddenly coding. All 3 were saved, thank God, but I'm concerned. Surgical complications happen, Chief, even in the best hospitals. These weren't surgical complications. In each case, the patient's blood work showed abnormal levels of medication. Medication they shouldn't have had in their systems at all." Harlow frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying something doesn't add up. Someone might be tampering with meds. That's a serious accusation." Donovan nodded grimly. "Which is why I'm keeping this quiet for now. I've alerted pharmacy to audit their systems, but I need your eyes on this too. You notice things others don't. Who were the surgeons on these cases? Different teams each time. The only common factor was Dr. Reed." Vanessa Thorne appeared suddenly at their table, tray in hand. "Chief Donovan, mind if I join you?" Something in Donovan's expression made Harlow sit up straighter. "A warning." "Dr. Thorne," Donovan nodded politely. "Actually, Dr. Reed and I were just finishing a private conversation." "Of course," she smiled but made no move to leave. "I just wanted to tell Dr. Reed that our aneurysm patient is awake and asking for him. Complete success, it seems." "That's great news," Harlow said, studying her face. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the cafeteria, her features seemed sharper, her smile not quite reaching those calculating green eyes. "You've worked at some impressive institutions, Dr. Thorne," Donovan commented casually. "Phoenix Memorial, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins." "I like to diversify my experience," she replied smoothly. "Lots of movement for someone so young in their career." Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "I go where my skills are needed, Chief Donovan." After she left, Harlow turned to Donovan. "What was that about?" The older man sighed. "Just Be careful around her, Reed. Something about her background check didn't sit right with HR, but the board pushed her hire through anyway. They were desperate after Dr. Michaels retired. You think she's involved with the medication issues? I don't know. But until we figure this out, watch your back and your patience. The following week, Harlow found himself working alongside Vanessa Thorne with increasing frequency. Despite Donovan's warning, or perhaps because of it, he found himself intrigued by her. She was brilliant, no question. Her technical skills were flawless, her knowledge extensive, and there was something else, a challenge in every interaction, as if she were constantly testing him. They fell into a routine of coffee after difficult cases, discussing techniques and approaches. Professional always, but beneath the medical jargon ran an undercurrent of something else, the way she leaned slightly too close when making a point, the brush of her hand against his when reaching for sugar packets, the knowing look when he mentioned being tired after a long night at home with his increasingly uncomfortable pregnant wife. Eliza's condition worsened as she entered her 8th month. Her blood pressure continued to rise despite medication. The doctor ordered bed rest, leaving her frustrated and more anxious than ever. I feel useless, she complained one evening as Harlow massaged her swollen feet. And enormous, and scared. Only 4 more weeks, he reminded her. Then we meet our daughter. If I make it 4 more weeks, she whispered, voicing the fear they both carried. Harlow, if something happens, nothing will happen, he interrupted firmly. I won't let it. But the truth was, for all his surgical skill, this was one situation he couldn't control, and that terrified him more than he could admit, even to himself. When his phone vibrated with another text from Vanessa that night, difficult case tomorrow. Could use your particular expertise. Breakfast briefing at 6. He found himself responding immediately. I'll be there. It was just professional courtesy, he told himself. Just 2 colleagues preparing for a complex procedure. Nothing more. But as the days passed, the line between professional and personal began to blur. Coffee became breakfast, became drinks after work, always with plausible deniability, always with the pretense of medical discussion. But Harlow knew he was playing a dangerous game. And then came the night that changed everything. Eliza called him during a department meeting, her voice tight with panic. Something's wrong, she gasped. I'm bleeding, Harlow. There's so much blood. His world narrowed to a pinpoint of fear. Call 911, I'm on my way home right now. As he rushed from the conference room, Vanessa caught his arm. Emergency? My wife, he managed, his heart hammering. The baby. Go, she urged. I'll cover your cases. He barely registered her words as he sprinted to the parking garage. His phone buzzed again, Eliza being loaded into an ambulance. She was coming to Sacramento Memorial, his hospital, where he could ensure she got the best care. Where Vanessa Thorne would be working the ER tonight. The realization hit him as he peeled out of the parking structure, tires squealing. His worlds were about to collide in the worst possible way. And somehow, deep in his gut, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Harlow's Tesla screeched into the emergency room parking space marked Chief of Neurosurgery Only. His hands trembled as he killed the engine, not the steady surgeon's hands that had saved countless lives, but the shaking fingers of a terrified husband. The hospital's automatic doors parted, and he rushed into the chaos of the ER. My wife, Eliza Reed. She was just brought in by ambulance, he demanded at the triage desk. The nurse's expression shifted from annoyed to sympathetic as she recognized him. Dr. Reed. She's in Trauma 3. Dr. Lancaster is with her now. Harlow pushed past waiting patients, ignoring protests as he burst through the double doors. In Trauma 3, a flurry of activity surrounded Eliza. Her face was ashen, oxygen mask obscuring her features, monitors beeping frantically around her. Blood stained the sheets beneath her. BP 9060 and dropping, a nurse called out. Dr. Sarah Lancaster, the hospital's top obstetrician, looked up as Harlow entered. Harlow, thank God. Placental abruption. We need to get her to surgery immediately. The baby? He managed to ask, medical training temporarily overriding his panic. Fetal heart tones are dropping. We don't have time to wait. Lancaster's expression left no room for argument. We're prepping an OR now. Harlow moved to Eliza's side, grasping her cold hand. Her eyes fluttered open, foggy with pain and fear. I'm so sorry, she whispered behind the mask. I tried to be careful. This isn't your fault, he assured her, throat tight. Sarah's taking you to surgery. Everything will be fine. Promise you'll stay with me, she pleaded, gripping his hand with surprising strength. Before he could answer, the trauma doors swung open again. Vanessa Thorne stood there, still in surgical scrubs, her expression unreadable as she took in the scene. "Dr. Reed," she said, professional but with an undercurrent of something else. "I heard what happened. I've come to offer my assistance." Lancaster glanced between them. "We've got this covered, Dr. Thorne. But thank you." "Actually," Vanessa pressed, "I just finished an emergency craniotomy. I'm already prepped, and we're short-staffed tonight." She turned to Harlow. "You shouldn't have to make medical decisions for your own family. Let me help." A strange hesitation gripped Harlow, something in Vanessa's eyes, eagerness, calculation. He couldn't place it. "Dr. Michaels will handle anesthesia," Lancaster said firmly. "He's already on his way down." "Of course," Vanessa nodded, but her eyes locked with Harlow's. "Dr. Reed, may I speak with you for a moment? Outside." "Harlow," Eliza's voice quavered. "Don't leave." He squeezed her hand. "Just 1 minute, love. I'll be right back." In the hallway, Vanessa stood close. Too close. "I know this is terrible timing, but there's something you need to know." Her voice dropped. "That case we discussed yesterday, the procedure's been moved up. Tonight. The patient's condition deteriorated rapidly." "I can't deal with that now," Harlow hissed. "My wife, this patient has a similar arteriovenous malformation to the one you pioneered that technique for last year. No one else can do this procedure." Her hand touched his arm. "Harlow, he'll die without you." The weight of impossible choices pressed down on him. "Find someone else." "There is no one else," she insisted. "Your wife is in good hands with Lancaster. This patient has no chance without you." The intercom crackled. "Or two prepped and ready for Dr. Lancaster." Through the glass, Harlow watched as nurses prepared to move Eliza. Dr. Michaels had arrived, already reviewing her chart. They were the best team in the hospital, arguably the state. "You can't save everyone," Vanessa said quietly, "but you can save him." In that moment of weakness, of fear for Eliza and their unborn child, of the desperate need to do something, anything, rather than helplessly watch, Harlow made a decision that would haunt him forever. "Tell all four I'm on my way," he muttered, then returned to Eliza's side. "I have to perform an emergency surgery," he told her, hating himself for the lie. "But I'll check on you the second it's over. Lancaster and Michaels are the best, Eliza. Trust them." Terror flashed across her face. "You're leaving? Now?" "I wouldn't if it wasn't life or death," he said, kissing her forehead. "I love you." As they wheeled Eliza toward the elevator, her expression of betrayal burned into his memory. He turned to find Vanessa waiting, a victorious gleam in her eyes. "All four," she said, already walking toward the surgical wing. "I'll brief you on the way." 2 hours into the surgery, Harlow realized there was no arteriovenous malformation. The patient on his table had a routine subdural hematoma. Challenging, certainly, but nothing that required his specific expertise. "You lied to me," he said quietly to Vanessa across the operating table, his voice too low for the rest of the team to hear. Her eyes crinkled above her surgical mask, almost like a smile. "I got you to where you needed to be. My wife is fighting for her life right now, and you're saving someone else's. Isn't that what you do, Doctor? Reed? Save lives?" She handed him a suction tool. "Besides, what could you have done for Eliza? Stand in the corner? Pace the waiting room? Here, you're useful." The worst part was, some small part of him knew she was right. He couldn't have performed surgery on Eliza. He would have been a wreck watching, helpless. "BP's dropping," the monitor tech announced. "Push another unit," Vanessa ordered smoothly, "and increase the propofol." Harlow frowned. "The propofol is already at maximum safe dosage. Trust me," she replied, adjusting the medication herself. "I know what I'm doing." Before he could object further, his pager buzzed. A nurse checked it and looked up. "Dr. Reed, it's from Dr. Lancaster. Your wife is out of surgery. Both she and the baby are stable but critical." Relief crashed through him, followed immediately by shame. He hadn't been there. He'd abandoned Eliza for a routine procedure that any competent neurosurgeon could have handled. "Close for me," he instructed his resident. "Standard protocol." Vanessa caught his arm as he turned to leave. "Harlow, wait. You can't just walk out mid-procedure." "Watch me," he snapped, pulling away. In the scrub room, he tore off his surgical gown and mask, washing his hands with furious intensity. In the mirror, his reflection looked like a stranger's, hollow-eyed, pale, the face of a man he suddenly didn't recognize. Vanessa followed him, pulling down her mask. "You're overreacting. Why did you lie about the procedure?" he demanded. "What game are you playing?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Maybe I wanted you to myself for a few hours. Is that so terrible? My wife almost died." "But she didn't," Vanessa pointed out. "And now your patient won't either. Win-win." The casual indifference in her tone chilled him. "Stay away from me," he warned, "and stay away from my family." Her expression hardened. "You didn't seem to mind my company last week, or the week before that, all those late-night coffees, those texts you kept responding to." She tilted her head. "What do you think Eliza would say about those?" The threat hung in the air between them. Harlow felt trapped, cornered by his own poor choices. "That's what I thought," Vanessa smiled, victorious again. "See you tomorrow, Dr. Reed." In the NICU, Harlow stood over the incubator that held his tiny daughter, born 7 weeks premature. Charlotte Eliza Reed, 4 pounds, 2 ounces. Her translucent skin showed blue veins beneath, tubes and wires seeming too large for her fragile body. "She's a fighter," the nurse told him kindly. "Strong heartbeat, breathing well on her own." Harlow could only nod, emotion choking him. He'd helped bring countless babies into the world through emergency neurological interventions, but nothing had prepared him for the fierce, terrified love he felt looking at his own child. Down the hall in recovery, Eliza slept, still pale but stable. The nurse had told him she'd been asking for him when she briefly regained consciousness after surgery. The guilt was crushing. "Dr. Reed." He turned to find Marcus Donovan standing in the doorway, concern etched on his face. "Chief," Harlow acknowledged, his voice rough. "I just heard about Eliza. Thank God Lancaster was on call." Donovan moved to stand beside him, gazing down at Charlotte. "Beautiful girl. Congratulations." "Thank you," Harlow managed. "I was surprised to hear you were in surgery when she was born," Donovan continued, his tone carefully neutral. "Emergency case?" The lie stuck in Harlow's throat. "Yes, couldn't be helped." Donovan studied him for a long moment. "Interesting. Because I reviewed the surgical schedule. Routine subdural hematoma. Certainly emergent, but nothing that required the chief of neurosurgery specifically." Harlow said nothing, shame burning through him. "With Dr. Thorne assisting," Donovan added pointedly. "The same Dr. Thorne who features prominently in 3 of the cases with suspicious medication discrepancies. What are you suggesting, Chief?" "I'm not suggesting anything, just making observations." Donovan sighed heavily. "Harlow, I've known you since you were a resident. You're one of the finest surgeons I've ever worked with, but lately, people are talking." "About what?" "The time you're spending with Dr. Thorne, the changes in your behavior. You missed 2 department meetings last week. You left rounds early twice. This isn't like you." "I've been preoccupied with Eliza's condition," Harlow defended, the excuse sounding hollow even to his own ears. "Have you?" Donovan challenged. "Because it seems to me you've been preoccupied with something or someone else entirely." Before Harlow could respond, his phone buzzed with a text. Donovan glanced down at the screen, where Vanessa's name was clearly visible. "We need to talk. Meet me at Lakeside Cafe, 8 p.m. Important." "Be careful, Harlow," Donovan warned quietly. "Whatever's happening here, it's bigger than you realize. The hospital board has contacted an external investigator about the medication incidents. A federal agent will be here next week." Harlow's blood ran cold. "Federal. FDA jurisdiction. Tampering with controlled substances crosses state lines." Donovan headed for the door, then paused. "By the way, did you know Dr. Thorne left Phoenix Memorial under unusual circumstances? Something about missing medication there too. Coincidence, perhaps?" After Donovan left, Harlow stood frozen, mind racing. What had he gotten himself into? Who was Vanessa Thorne really? And how had he allowed himself to be manipulated so completely? The Lakeside Cafe sat on the edge of McKinley Park, far enough from the hospital to avoid running into colleagues. The evening air was cool as Harlow slid into the seat across from Vanessa, who sipped a glass of red wine. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said, pushing a second glass toward him. "I shouldn't be here," he replied, ignoring the wine. "My wife and daughter need me, and yet here you are." Her smile was knowing, victorious. "How are they doing?" "Don't," he warned. "Don't pretend you care." Vanessa leaned forward. "But I do care, Harlow. About you. About what you want. And what is it you think I want?" "Freedom," she said simply. From expectations, from being the perfect Dr. Reed all the time, from a marriage that's more obligation than passion. Her words struck too close to buried truths he didn't want to face. The mounting pressure of his reputation, the strain that years of fertility treatments had placed on his relationship with Eliza, the quiet fear that he wasn't cut out for fatherhood. "That's not why I'm here," he said firmly. "Donovan told me about Phoenix, about the investigation." Something flashed in her eyes, anger, fear. Marcus Donovan should mind his own business. "Were you tampering with medications there too?" She laughed, a cold sound. "Is that what he told you?" Poor, naive Harlow, always believing the best in people. "Answer the question." "No," she said, eyes hard. "I wasn't tampering with medications there, or here." "Then why leave Phoenix so suddenly? Why all the hospital transfers?" "Politics," she shrugged. "Jealousy. People who didn't appreciate my methods." She reached across the table, fingers brushing his. "I'm good at what I do, Harlow. Sometimes that makes people uncomfortable." He pulled his hand away. "The federal investigation is nothing to worry about," she interrupted, "but it does complicate things, which is why I needed to see you." She took another sip of wine. "We need to be careful now, more discreet." "There is no we, Vanessa," Harlow insisted. "Whatever game you're playing, I'm done." Her expression hardened. "It's a little late for that. Think about how it looks, Harlow. All those private meetings, the texts, abandoning your wife during an emergency to operate with me." She smiled thinly. "If I go down for this investigation, you'll be right there beside me." The threat hung between them, and Harlow realized with sickening clarity that she'd been planning this all along, creating a paper trail, manufacturing compromising situations, building leverage. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "For now, just don't get in my way. And when the time comes, I may need a favor." She stood, dropping cash on the table. "Give my best to Eliza and your daughter." "Charlotte, isn't it such a pretty name?" The casual mention of his daughter sent a chill through Harlow. As Vanessa walked away, his phone buzzed with multiple notifications. 3 missed calls from the hospital, 2 from Lancaster. 1 text message, just delivered. Dr. Reed returned to hospital immediately. Emergency with Eliza. Post-surgical complications. Suspected adverse reaction to medication. Horror washed over him as the pieces suddenly clicked into place. Vanessa hadn't lured him away from the hospital just to talk. She'd needed him gone. Harlow burst through the ICU doors, heart hammering against his ribs. The night nurse jumped at his sudden entrance, recognition flashing across her face. "Dr. Reed, thank God." "Where is she?" he demanded, already moving past the station. "Room 4, but Dr. Reed." He didn't wait to hear the rest. The sterile corridor stretched endlessly before him as he ran, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like accusatory whispers. Outside room 4, Dr. Lancaster stood conferring with a pharmacist Harlow recognized as Ted Winters. "What happened?" Harlow's voice cracked as both turned to face him. Lancaster's expression was grim. "Post-surgical hemorrhaging. Her blood isn't clotting properly. We've given her 3 units already and platelets, but her levels aren't responding as they should." "That doesn't make sense." Harlow pushed past them to look through the window. Eliza lay motionless, even paler than before, surrounded by machines and IV poles. A nurse was changing a blood-soaked bandage at her abdomen. "She has no history of clotting disorders." "That's what we're trying to figure out," Winters said, holding up a medication bag. "Her blood work showed traces of heparin. She shouldn't have received any anticoagulants post-delivery." The room seemed to tilt around Harlow. "Heparin? Who the hell authorized that?" Lancaster shook her head. "No one did. It's not in her chart, not in the orders. We're checking the medication dispensing logs now." "Where were you, Harlow?" Lancaster asked quietly. The nurses tried calling repeatedly. The question hit like a physical blow. "I was..." He couldn't finish the sentence. How could he explain he'd been meeting the woman who might have poisoned his wife? Before he could formulate a response, the elevator doors at the end of the hall opened. Chief Donovan stepped out, accompanied by a stern-looking man in a dark suit. "Dr. Reed," Donovan called, his voice unusually formal. "This is Special Agent Robert Carter, FDA Criminal Investigation Unit." The agent extended his hand, which Harlow shook automatically, still reeling. "Doctor." "Reed, I understand this is a difficult time," Carter said, his tone professional but not unkind. "But I need to ask you some questions about Dr. Vanessa Thorne and the medication protocols at this hospital." My wife is fighting for her life, Harlow protested. Whatever this is, it can wait. Actually, it can't, Carter replied, because I believe your wife may be the latest victim in a pattern of medical tampering that crosses state lines. The words landed like blows. Latest victim, pattern, tampering. Is there somewhere we can speak privately? Carter asked. Lancaster stepped forward. Use my office. I'll stay with Eliza and notify you immediately of any changes. She squeezed Harlow's arm. We're transfusing her again. The bleeding seems to be slowing. Harlow nodded numbly, following Donovan and Agent Carter down the hall. His surgeon's mind raced through possibilities, calculations, odds, anything to avoid confronting the terrible suspicion forming in his gut. Lancaster's office was small but tidy, diplomas lining the walls alongside photos of smiling babies she'd delivered over the years. Harlow sat heavily in the chair across from her desk, suddenly exhausted. Dr. Reed, Carter began, remaining standing. When did you first meet Dr. Thorne? About 2 months ago, when she started at Sacramento Memorial. And your relationship with her is... Harlow stiffened. Professional. She's a colleague. Carter exchanged a glance with Donovan before continuing. We have records of numerous text messages between you two, often late at night. Coffee meetings, dinners. We worked together on difficult cases, Harlow defended, though the excuse sounded hollow even to his own ears. Including tonight, Carter pressed, when your wife was suffering a life-threatening complication? Shame burned through him. What exactly are you investigating, Agent Carter? Doctor, Vanessa Thorne has worked at 6 hospitals in the past 4 years, Carter explained. At each one there were unexplained medical incidents, patients receiving incorrect medications, unexpected complications, near fatalities that couldn't be explained. And you think she's responsible? We know she is, Carter stated flatly. What we don't know is why, or if she has accomplices. The implication hung in the air. Harlow felt sick. You think I'm helping her poison patients? My own wife? I think you've been manipulated, Carter replied. Dr. Thorne has a pattern. She identifies influential doctors, usually male, usually in positions of power, and cultivates relationships with them. These relationships provide her with access, alibis, and protection. Donovan cleared his throat. Harlow, we need to know where you were tonight, and we need your phone. You can't seriously believe your wife was poisoned while you were unreachable, Donovan interrupted, his expression pained. Meeting with the prime suspect in a federal investigation. Harlow's defenses crumbled. He handed over his phone, unlocked it, and told them everything. The texts, the coffee meetings, the growing inappropriate relationship, even his absence during Eliza's emergency surgery. She was setting me up, he realized aloud. From the very beginning. Carter nodded grimly. She's extraordinarily calculating, but this time she made a mistake. The pharmacy logs show she accessed the medication dispensing system using her ID card, but the security camera caught her at Eliza's IV 20 minutes later. You have her on camera? Harlow's voice was barely a whisper. We do. We're preparing to arrest her tonight. A knock at the door interrupted them. A young nurse poked her head in, her expression urgent. Dr. Reed, Dr. Lancaster says to come quickly. Your wife is awake and asking for you. Eliza's eyes found him the moment he entered the room. The betrayal and hurt in her gaze cut deeper than any scalpel ever could. You weren't here, she whispered, her voice raspy from the breathing tube that had been removed. Eliza, I'm so sorry. He moved to take her hand, but she pulled away weakly. They told me, she continued, tears gathering, about the emergency surgery, the one that couldn't wait. Her eyes hardened. Except Doctor. Chan said it was a routine procedure, that any resident could have handled it. Harlow felt the last of his excuses evaporate. I made a terrible mistake. Where were you tonight, Harlow? When I was bleeding out. When he didn't immediately answer, she pressed. The truth, for once. I was with Dr. Thorne, he admitted, the words like ash in his mouth. The anesthesiologist. It wasn't a question. Are you sleeping with her? No, he answered quickly. It never got to that point. But it was inappropriate. I let myself get too close. Eliza closed her eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks. While I was fighting to keep our baby alive, while I was bleeding in our bed. Eliza, please! They think she poisoned me. She cut him off, eyes snapping open. Did you know that? That your girlfriend tried to kill me? She's not my... He stopped, recognizing the futility. I didn't know. I swear to you, I had no idea what she was doing. But you knew something was wrong with her, Eliza pressed, didn't you? And you still left me alone. The truth of it crushed him. He had sensed something off about Vanessa from the beginning. The calculation in her eyes, the convenient emergencies, the way she isolated him. Yet he'd ignored every warning sign, drawn to the danger, the flattery, the escape she represented. I will never forgive myself for that, he said quietly. Have you seen Charlotte? Eliza asked suddenly, changing the subject. Briefly, she's beautiful, Eliza. She almost died too, Eliza whispered. Did they tell you that? When I was hemorrhaging, her heart rate dropped. They had to resuscitate her. Each word was a dagger. Harlow sank into the chair beside her bed, head in his hands. The police want to talk to you, he told her, about Dr. Thorne. I know. Dr. Lancaster told me. She turned her face away from him. I need rest now. Please leave. Eliza, please, she repeated, her voice breaking. I can't look at you right now. The NICU was quiet at 3 a.m., just the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. Harlow stood over Charlotte's incubator, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. Her skin had a healthier pink tinge now, though she remained dwarfed by the medical equipment surrounding her. You can touch her, a kindly nurse said, startling him from his thoughts. It's good for her to feel your presence. Hesitantly, Harlow reached through the incubator's port, his surgeon's finger looking massive next to his daughter's miniature hand. To his surprise, her fingers reflexively curled around his. Hey there, Charlotte, he whispered, voice thick. I'm your dad. The simple statement broke something inside him. He was a father now. This tiny, perfect being depended on him completely, and he'd already failed her before she'd even taken her first breath. Doctor. Reed. Agent Carter appeared at his side. I'm sorry to interrupt. Have you found her? Harlow asked, not taking his eyes off Charlotte. Dr. Thorne has disappeared. Her apartment's empty. Her car's gone from the hospital lot. Harlow's stomach dropped. She knew you were onto her. Someone tipped her off, Carter confirmed. We're checking hospital security footage to see who she spoke with in the hours before she vanished. A terrible thought occurred to Harlow. Our meeting at the cafe, she knew I'd be gone for at least an hour. She planned it. Most likely, Carter agreed. Dr. Reed, we need to discuss protection for your family. Protection? Vanessa Thorne is now a fugitive facing multiple federal charges. Based on her pattern in previous hospitals, she doesn't react well to exposure. Carter's expression was grave. In Phoenix, a surgeon who questioned her behavior had a mysterious car accident the day before he was scheduled to testify. Fear, cold and overwhelming, washed over Harlow. You think she'll come after us? I think she's unpredictable and dangerous, and you and your wife represent a significant threat to her freedom. The hospital board convened an emergency meeting at dawn. Harlow sat at the conference table, aware of the sidelong glances and whispers. His reputation, once sterling, now lay in tatters. Board Chairman Douglas cleared his throat. In light of recent events and pending the federal investigation, the board has unanimously voted to place you on administrative leave, Dr. Reed. Harlow nodded, unsurprised. I understand. Furthermore, Douglas continued, all patients under your care will be transferred to other neurosurgeons effective immediately. You are to have no contact with hospital staff or patients during the investigation. My wife and daughter are patients here, Harlow pointed out. Exceptions will be made for family visitation only, Douglas conceded. But you are not to access any medical systems or provide any medical advice, even regarding your family members. The humiliation was complete. Stripped of his position, his authority, his purpose, all because he'd allowed himself to be manipulated by a predator he should have recognized from the start. As the meeting disbanded, Chief Donovan pulled him aside. I tried to warn you, the older man said, regret evident in his voice. I know, I should have listened. The FBI found something in their background check on Thorne, Donovan said quietly. She's not even a real anesthesiologist. Harlow stared in disbelief. What? She was a resident who was dismissed from her program 5 years ago. The credentials she presented here were masterfully forged. Her real name is Victoria Lassiter. How did she pass the hospital's verification process? She didn't, Donovan replied grimly. Someone internally overrode the verification flags in the system. Someone with administrative access. The implication was clear. Vanessa had an accomplice within the hospital, someone with significant authority. We're checking everyone, Donovan assured him. But in the meantime, watch your back. And Harlow, he hesitated. Whatever happens with the investigation, whatever happens with your marriage, don't lose sight of that little girl upstairs. She needs her father, even if he's made terrible mistakes. When Harlow returned to Eliza's room later that day, he found her sitting up, a hospital social worker by her side. The woman excused herself as he entered, giving him a pitying look on her way out. "How are you feeling?" he asked Eliza. "Like I was poisoned by your girlfriend and betrayed by my husband," she replied flatly. "Physically better. The bleeding has stopped." "She wasn't my girlfriend," he said automatically. "No? What would you call it then?" He had no answer that wouldn't sound like an excuse. Eliza sighed. "The police showed me the security footage. She came into my room, Harlow, while I was unconscious. She injected something into my IV, then checked her watch like she was timing how long it would take." Her voice broke. She smiled while she did it. Harlow felt physically ill. "Eliza, I swear to you, I had no idea what she was capable of. But you were attracted to her darkness," Eliza observed with surprising clarity. "That's what scares me most. You were drawn to something destructive in her." The truth of it stunned him. There had been an edge to Vanessa that had excited him, a danger that felt like a relief after years of careful responsibility. "The FBI agent says she's done this before," Eliza continued, "that she finds doctors to manipulate, creates medical emergencies, then disappears. They think she has an accomplice here at the hospital," Harlow added. "Someone who helped her bypass security protocols." Eliza frowned. "Why? What does she get out of it?" "I don't know," Harlow admitted. "But I'm going to find out. For you and Charlotte." "They've assigned a security guard to our rooms," Eliza told him. "They think she might come back." The thought chilled him to the bone. "I won't let her near either of you again." "You already failed at that once," Eliza pointed out, her voice hard. Then, seeing his expression, she softened slightly. "The social worker says Charlotte might be able to leave the NICU in a week. I'll be discharged before then." "That's good news." "I'm going to my sister's in Oregon," she said, not meeting his eyes. "As soon as Charlotte's cleared to travel, I've already called Nina, and she's flying down tomorrow to help." The finality in her voice was unmistakable. This wasn't a temporary separation. It was the beginning of the end. "I understand," he said, though the words tasted like ashes. "Do you?" Eliza finally looked at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Because I don't. I don't understand how the man I married, the man I trusted with my life, with our daughter's life, could betray us so completely." Before he could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Shouts, running footsteps. Harlow turned to see Agent Carter sprinting toward them, hand on his holstered weapon. "We've found her," he announced breathlessly. "Vanessa Thorne. She's been hiding in plain sight." "Where?" Harlow demanded. Carter's expression was grim. "Working as a nurse at Memorial Children's Hospital, under yet another false identity." He paused, the next words clearly difficult to deliver. "Dr. Reed, she's been assigned to the neonatal intensive care unit. She's been working in a NICU?" Harlow's voice emerged as a horrified whisper. The implications struck him like physical blows. Vulnerable newborns, grieving parents, a predator with medical access. Agent Carter nodded grimly. "Started 3 days ago. Using credentials stolen from a real nurse. We're coordinating with local police for immediate arrest." "My God," Eliza breathed, face ashen. "Those babies." "We have no evidence she's harmed any patients there yet," Carter reassured them. "Our team is reviewing all medication administration records." "It doesn't make sense." Harlow shook his head, pacing the small hospital room. "Why take that risk? She must know we're looking for her." Carter's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "We need to move now." He gestured to the security guard in the doorway. "No one enters this room except medical personnel you personally recognize." "What's happening?" Eliza demanded. "We just got access to Dr. Thorne's cloud storage. There were photos—" Carter hesitated. "Photos of your daughter, Mrs. Reed, taken yesterday in the NICU." The world seemed to tilt beneath Harlow's feet. "Charlotte? She's fine," Carter said quickly. "We have agents heading to the NICU now, but I need you to stay here, Dr. Reed. We can't risk—" "Like hell," Harlow growled, already moving toward the door. "If you interfere with a federal arrest—" "She's my daughter," Carter blocked his path. And Thorne wants you to react exactly like this. She's counting on it. Think, Dr. Reed, she's always 3 steps ahead. The cruel logic penetrated Harlow's panic. If he rushed to the NICU now, he'd be playing directly into Vanessa's hands. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, forcing his breathing to slow. "Stay with your wife. Let us handle this." Carter checked his weapon. "I promise you, Dr. Reed, we will protect your daughter." After Carter left, Harlow sank into the chair beside Eliza's bed, face in his hands. "This is my fault. All of it." To his surprise, Eliza reached out, her cool fingers brushing his arm. "No, you didn't make her who she is. But I let her in. I gave her access to my life, to our lives." He looked up, meeting Eliza's eyes. "I failed you both." "Yes," she agreed, the simple word cutting deeper than any angry tirade. "You did." An hour passed in tense silence, broken only by medical staff checking Eliza's vitals. Finally, Harlow's phone rang. "Chief Donovan." "They missed her," Donovan said without preamble. "She signed out of Children's Hospital 20 minutes before agents arrived, claimed a family emergency." "Charlotte?" Harlow demanded. "Is safe. They've moved all NICU babies to a secure area with verified staff only." Relief washed through him, followed quickly by renewed fear. "If she's targeting my family, we're increasing security for both Eliza and Charlotte," Donovan assured him. "But Harlow, there's something else." The FBI searched her apartment and found detailed records, not just from Sacramento Memorial, but from every hospital where she's worked. "What kind of records?" "Patient deaths, complications, near misses, all meticulously documented, with dates, times, medications used." Donovan's voice lowered. "She's been conducting some kind of twisted research experiment, testing medication interactions, documenting outcomes." Harlow felt physically ill. "How many victims?" "At least 30 across 6 hospitals. 12 fatalities." Donovan paused. "And Harlow, you're named repeatedly in her notes. She calls you her most promising subject yet." 2 days passed with no sign of Vanessa. Charlotte continued to improve, graduating from her incubator to a regular bassinet in the secured NICU. Eliza was discharged, but refused to leave the hospital without her daughter. The FBI maintained round-the-clock security, but the strain wore on everyone. Each new nurse, each shift change brought fresh anxiety. Was this person really who they claimed to be? Meanwhile, the professional consequences of Harlow's actions came crashing down. The Hospital Ethics Committee scheduled a formal hearing. The State Medical Board opened an investigation. Colleagues who'd once sought his surgical expertise now avoided eye contact in hallways. "The board meeting is tomorrow," Harlow told Eliza as they sat together in the NICU watching Charlotte sleep. It was the first time they'd had a civil conversation in days. "I'll likely lose my privileges here permanently." Eliza nodded, unsurprised. "And your license?" "Depends on the medical board investigation. Best case probation, worst case..." He couldn't finish. "You were a great surgeon," she said quietly. The past tense wasn't lost on him. "I always thought that was enough. Being great at my job, providing for our family. I never realized how easily I could lose everything that actually matters." "When Charlotte's released," Eliza said after a long pause, "I'm still going to Nina's. I need space to think." "I understand," he replied, though the prospect of being separated from both of them tore at him. "Can I visit her?" Eliza studied him for a moment. "Yes, she needs her father, regardless of what happens between us." It was the smallest olive branch, but he grasped it gratefully. The Ethics Committee hearing was as brutal as expected. Harlow sat alone at one end of the conference table, facing 12 colleagues who now regarded him as a cautionary tale. "The evidence indicates an inappropriate relationship with Dr. Thorne," the committee chair stated flatly. "While there's no proof of direct complicity in her criminal activities, your behavior exhibited severe lapses in judgment that placed patients at risk, including your own wife." Harlow didn't attempt to defend himself. "I accept full responsibility for my actions." "The committee recommends immediate termination of your privileges at Sacramento Memorial," the chair continued. "Furthermore, we will forward our findings to the State Medical Board with a recommendation for license review." As he left the meeting, Chief Donovan waited in the hallway. "I spoke on your behalf," the older man said, "for whatever it's worth. Thank you, but they made the right call." Harlow suddenly felt bone-weary. "I wouldn't trust me either." "What will you do now?" "Focus on finding Vanessa," Harlow replied. I can't do anything else until my family is safe. Donovan nodded thoughtfully. Agent Carter mentioned they found something interesting in her records. Apparently, she's been publishing research papers under various aliases, papers on rare medication interactions and unexpected surgical complications. She's been poisoning patients to advance her research career. The depravity was staggering. It seems so, but here's the strange part. The research itself is groundbreaking. Several of her papers have been cited in major medical journals. Harlow frowned. That doesn't make sense. Why not just conduct legitimate research? According to the psychological profile the FBI developed, she craves control more than recognition. The power of life and death matters more than professional accolades. Donovan checked his watch. The agents want to meet with you this afternoon. They think you might help them anticipate her next move. Agent Carter spread dozens of photos across the conference room table, surveillance images of Vanessa at various hospitals using different identities. In each, she looked subtly different. Hair color changed, glasses added or removed, even apparent weight fluctuations achieved through strategic padding. She's a chameleon, Carter explained, and methodical. She never breaks pattern. What is her pattern? Harlow asked, studying the images. She identifies an influential doctor, cultivates a relationship, creates medical emergencies to demonstrate her expertise, documents outcomes, then vanishes when suspicion arises. Carter pointed to a timeline chart. The cycle usually takes 3 to 6 months. You're the first person who's caught on before she disappeared. I didn't catch on, Harlow corrected bitterly. You did. But you recognized something was wrong, Carter insisted. That's why she accelerated her timeline with your wife. You were starting to question her and she needed leverage. The thought that his faint misgivings might have triggered Vanessa's attack on Eliza haunted Harlow. Based on previous cases, Carter continued, she typically resurfaces within 4 to 6 weeks at a new facility, usually in a different state. But this time is different. She's never been so publicly exposed before. And she's never had a specific target like Charlotte, Harlow added quietly. Carter nodded grimly. Which is why we believe she hasn't left the area. The photos of your daughter suggest a fixation. She wants to punish me, Harlow realized. For what? Rejecting her? Possibly. Or perhaps you represent a challenge she hasn't conquered. Carter consulted his notes. In her journals, she refers to you as her ultimate subject, the one who will complete her research. Cold dread settled in Harlow's stomach. She's not done with us. That evening, Harlow sat alone in his empty apartment for the first time since Eliza's hospitalization. The silence was oppressive. Baby items they'd purchased together, the crib still in its box, tiny clothes with tags attached, mocked him from every corner. His phone rang, an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Dr. Reed, Vanessa's voice smooth and unperturbed. How's the family? Harlow's hand tightened on the phone. The FBI is tracing this call. No, they're not, she replied with confidence. I'm using a burner phone and I'll be gone long before they could track the signal. But don't worry, I'm not calling to threaten you. What do you want? To explain. You deserve that much. Her tone was surprisingly sincere. I chose you for a reason, Harlow. Your surgical skills, yes, but more than that. Your ambition, your willingness to bend rules when necessary. We're not so different, you and I. I don't poison patients, he snapped. No? What about Mrs. Henderson last year? The experimental approach you used without full board approval? Or Mr. Daniels' unauthorized medication adjustment? She paused. I've read your files, Harlow. You take risks when you believe the outcome justifies them. The accuracy of her examples disturbed him. Those cases had been successful, but she was right. He had bent protocols. My research will save thousands, she continued. The patterns I've documented, the interactions I've discovered, they're already changing treatment protocols. At the cost of innocent lives. Progress always has a price, she countered. You know that better than most. Why Eliza? He demanded. Why my daughter? A brief silence. That was regrettable, but necessary. You were pulling away, becoming suspicious. I needed to secure your attention. By trying to kill my wife. I never intended for her to die, Vanessa clarified as if that made it better. Just enough risk to keep you focused on me. The cold calculation in her voice chilled him. You're sick, Vanessa. I prefer committed, she sighed. The work isn't finished, Harlow. I still need your expertise for the final phase. We could do remarkable things together. I'm going to help the FBI find you, he promised. Whatever it takes. Oh, I'm counting on that, she replied, a smile in her voice. In fact, I'm quite looking forward to our next meeting. Before he could respond, the line went dead. Charlotte was finally cleared for discharge a week later. Harlow met Eliza at the hospital, where Nina, her sister, waited to drive them to the airport. The FBI says you'll have protection in Portland, Harlow said, as he helped load their minimal luggage into Nina's rental car. A plainclothes agent would be traveling with them, with additional security at Nina's home. What about you? Eliza asked, adjusting Charlotte's blanket in her carrier. I'm staying here, working with the investigators. He gazed down at Charlotte, memorizing her tiny features. I need to end this so you both can come home safely. Bold of you to assume we're coming back to you, Nina muttered, earning a sharp look from Eliza. Nina, please, Eliza said quietly. Give us a minute? After Nina reluctantly stepped away, Eliza faced him. I'm still angry. I still don't know if I can forgive you. I understand, he said, and meant it. But, she hesitated. Watching you these past 2 weeks, how you fought for Charlotte, how you've owned your mistakes without excuses, it reminds me of the man I married. Hope flickered weakly in his chest. I'm trying to be worthy of you both. I know. She touched his arm briefly. That's why I'm willing to talk. After this is over, no promises, but talk. It was more than he deserved. Thank you. She nodded once, then turned toward the car. Be careful, Harlow. She's obsessed with you. I will, he promised, watching as the agent helped her secure Charlotte's carrier in the back seat. As the car pulled away, Harlow felt the weight of his responsibility settle firmly on his shoulders. He would find Vanessa. He would protect his family. And maybe, just maybe, he would find a way to rebuild what he had destroyed. 3 weeks passed. The FBI investigation continued, with Harlow offering insights into Vanessa's methods and motivations. His daily video calls with Eliza and Charlotte became his lifeline, a reminder of what he was fighting for. The state medical board suspended his license pending investigation, but Harlow barely registered the professional setback. His focus remained singular, finding Vanessa before she could harm anyone else. We've got something, Agent Carter announced one morning, calling Harlow to the field office. A pharmacy technician at University Hospital reported suspicious behavior from a new employee. Description matches Thorne with yet another appearance change. You're bringing her in? Harlow asked, hope rising. Raid is scheduled for tomorrow morning. We're gathering final surveillance today. Carter displayed blueprint-style maps of the hospital. We believe she's using the identity of Dr. Emily Chen, a locum tenens physician. Harlow studied the hospital layout. What's her target this time? Based on your insights about her research focus, we believe she's targeting the transplant unit, Carter explained. Several high-profile cases scheduled this week. Let me come with you, Harlow urged. I know how she thinks, how she'll react when cornered. Carter shook his head. Too risky. She's fixated on you, remember? If she sees you, there's no telling how she'll respond. That's exactly why I should be there, as a distraction if needed. After considerable debate, Carter reluctantly agreed to a compromise. Harlow would remain in a secure vehicle outside the hospital, consulting via radio but not directly involved in the raid. The operation began at 5 a.m., when hospital staffing was at its minimum. Agents in tactical gear positioned themselves throughout the facility, while Harlow waited in an unmarked SUV, listening to the communications through a headset. Target spotted on 3rd floor, came the first report, moving toward east stairwell. She's heading for the research wing, Harlow noted, studying the hospital schematic. There's a secure medication storage there. The minutes crawled by, tension building as agents closed in. Then suddenly, chaos erupted. She's made us, she's running. East exit, ground floor. I need backup at the loading dock. Harlow's heart raced as he listened to the pursuit. Without conscious thought, he found himself exiting the vehicle, moving toward the commotion despite strict instructions to stay put. Dr. Reed, a familiar voice called from the shadows of the parking structure. I was hoping you'd come. Vanessa emerged slowly, her appearance once again transformed, blonde now, thinner, wearing scrubs under a white coat. But those calculating green eyes remained unchanged. It's over, Vanessa, he said, trying to keep her attention while discreetly activating the emergency signal on his radio. Agents are surrounding the building. I know, she smiled. That was the plan. What are you talking about? I needed to draw you out, she explained calmly. Away from your protection detail. We have unfinished business. The FBI knows I'm here, he bluffed. No, they don't. They're too busy chasing my colleague in a blonde wig through the hospital basement. She stepped closer. You really should be more careful about who you trust, Harlow. Cold realization washed over him. You have an accomplice inside the investigation. I have partners in many places, she corrected. My research is too important to entrust to just one person. From her pocket, she withdrew a syringe. Don't worry, this won't kill you. Just a little something to facilitate our departure. Harlow backed away, calculating his options. You'll never get away with this. They'll find us. Eventually, perhaps. But by then, my work with you will be complete. She advanced slowly. You're the missing piece, Harlow, the final subject in my most important study. What study? He asked, stalling for time as he edged toward the emergency call button on the parking structure pillar. The psychological and physiological responses of an elite surgeon to systematic medication manipulation. Her eyes gleamed with disturbing intensity. How decision-making changes under chemical influence. How skill deteriorates. How the mind rationalizes failure. You're insane, he whispered. I'm visionary, she corrected, and you're about to make a significant contribution to medical science. As she lunged forward with the syringe, Harlow dodged, using his greater size to knock her off balance. The needle clattered to the concrete as they grappled. Despite her smaller frame, Vanessa fought with surprising strength, clawing at his face, kneeing him viciously. Dr. Reed! Agent Carter's voice echoed through the parking structure as flashlight beams cut through the darkness. FBI, don't move! Vanessa froze momentarily, then smiled at Harlow with chilling calm. This isn't over, she whispered, before suddenly going limp in his grasp, eyes rolling back. Medical personnel rushed forward as agents secured the area. She's having a seizure, one shouted, checking her pupils. Harlow watched in disbelief as Vanessa convulsed, foam gathering at her lips. Within moments, her body stilled completely. She's coding, a paramedic announced, beginning chest compressions. Despite everything, Harlow's medical training kicked in. He moved to help, but Carter held him back. Let them work, the agent instructed. This could be another trick, but it wasn't. 20 minutes later, Vanessa Thorne was declared dead at the scene. Preliminary examination suggested self-administered poison, a fatal dose concealed in a tooth cavity, released when she bit down during their struggle. She chose death over capture, Carter observed grimly, as the coroner's team removed her body. Harlow stood in stunned silence, the finality of it washing over him. It was over. His family was safe, yet the victory felt hollow. 2 days later, he stood nervously at Portland International Airport, scanning arriving passengers. When he finally spotted Eliza carrying Charlotte in her front carrier, relief flooded through him. You came, he said simply when they reached him. You found her, Eliza replied. It's safe now. Yes. He hesitated, then asked, Can I? Eliza nodded, helping him awkwardly extract Charlotte from the carrier. He held his daughter close, inhaling her sweet baby scent, marveling at how she'd grown in just a few weeks. She missed you, Eliza said softly. She gets excited when she hears your voice on the video calls, pride and regret tangled in his chest. I've missed her too. Missed you both. As they walked to baggage claim, a tentative peace settled between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. I've been thinking, Eliza said as they waited for her suitcase, about what happens next. Harlow held his breath, afraid to hope. Nina's guest room isn't a long-term solution, she continued, and Charlotte should grow up in her own home. You're coming back to Sacramento? He asked carefully. Yes. She met his eyes directly. But not to our old apartment. Too many bad memories there. Of course, we can look for something new. Wherever you'd be comfortable. Eliza nodded thoughtfully. And you? The question hung between them. Was he included in this new beginning? I'd like to try again, he said honestly. To rebuild your trust. To be the husband and father you both deserve. But I understand if that's asking too much. She was quiet for a long moment, watching as he gently rocked Charlotte. We can start with counseling, she finally offered. See where it leads. It wasn't a promise of reconciliation, but it was hope, more than he'd dared to imagine after everything that had happened. As they collected her luggage and walked toward the exit, Harlow felt the weight of the past months beginning to lift. Vanessa was gone. His family was safe. The long road to redemption stretched before him, difficult but not impossible. What he didn't see was the woman watching them from across the terminal, a woman with dark hair and familiar green eyes, observing with clinical interest as the first phase of her contingency plan fell perfectly into place. 6 months passed like the slow healing of a surgical wound, progress marked in small, painful increments. Harlow and Eliza established a cautious new normal, living in separate bedrooms of a rented house in Sacramento's East End. Charlotte thrived under their shared care, her personality emerging in gurgled laughs and curious eyes that tracked her father's movements with particular fascination. Twice weekly counseling sessions excavated the ruins of their marriage. Sometimes they left in silence, wounds reopened. Other days brought tentative smiles, forgotten memories resurfaced. Their therapist called it relationship archaeology, carefully uncovering what had been buried, preserving what remained valuable. The professional aftermath of the Vanessa Thorne case continued to unfold. The FBI investigation exposed an extensive network of medical fraud spanning multiple hospitals. Harlow testified before grand juries, medical boards, and hospital review committees. His cooperation earned him a measure of professional grace. His medical license suspension reduced to probation with potential reinstatement after 1 year. Life had begun to stabilize when Charlotte's first birthday approached. Eliza planned a small celebration, just the three of them, her sister Nina and Chief Donovan, whose grandfatherly affection for Charlotte had surprised everyone. 2 days before the party, Harlow returned from a physical therapy appointment, his shoulder never fully recovered from the parking garage struggle, to find Eliza staring at the kitchen table, face ashen. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately alert. Wordlessly, she pushed an envelope toward him. Inside, a birthday card for Charlotte contained a handwritten note. "Happy birthday, little one. So sorry I missed your special day. Perhaps next year? V." The impossibility of it struck him first. Vanessa was dead. He'd watched her body removed by the coroner. "This has to be some sick joke," he said, examining the envelope. No postmark. Hand delivered. "The handwriting matches her hospital documentation," Eliza whispered. The FBI confirmed it. Cold reality settled over him. She faked her death, but how? There was an autopsy, dental records. "Agent Carter called while you were out. They exhumed the body." Eliza's voice trembled. "It wasn't her. The dental records were forged. The body belonged to a woman reported missing in Oregon 3 weeks earlier." "My God," Harlow breathed. "Where's Charlotte?" "With Nina at the park. I've already called her. They're coming straight home." Harlow pulled out his phone with shaking hands, dialing Carter. "We need protection again," he said when the agent answered. "Now." Within hours, the house transformed into a command center. Security details, surveillance equipment, agents reviewing neighborhood camera footage. Charlotte, oblivious to the chaos, babbled happily in her playpen while Eliza watched her with terrified eyes. "How did we miss this?" Carter muttered, pacing the living room. The body had the same blood type, similar age and build. The face was damaged enough to justify the quick identification. "She had help," Harlow reminded him. "Someone inside the investigation." Carter nodded grimly. "We've identified a lab technician who falsified the dental comparison. He's in custody, but claiming he was blackmailed, says Vanessa threatened his family." "Do you believe him?" "Partially, but there's more to it. Financial records show unusual deposits to his account. He was paid for his cooperation." "So what now?" Eliza interrupted. "We just wait for her to come after us again." "No," Carter replied firmly. "We use this. She made a mistake revealing herself. We can set a trap." The plan was simple, but risky. Charlotte's birthday party would proceed as scheduled, with enhanced but discreet security. The FBI hoped Vanessa might attempt surveillance, giving them a chance to track and apprehend her. On the morning of Charlotte's birthday, Harlow found Eliza in the nursery, watching their daughter sleep. "We can still cancel," he offered quietly. She shook her head. "I refuse to let her steal this from us too." The determination in Eliza's voice stirred something in Harlow. Pride, admiration, and a renewed awareness of her strength. In the midst of crisis, she remained centered on what mattered most. "I've been thinking," he said hesitantly, "about what happens after this is over, if it's ever over." "What do you mean?" "My medical license. The reinstatement hearing is next month. He paused. I'm not sure I want to go back to surgery. Surprise flashed across her face. But you love surgery. It's who you are. It was, he corrected. But I've been volunteering at that clinic in Oak Park, working with addiction patients. It feels right. Important in a different way. Eliza studied him thoughtfully. You're different since all this happened. Less, she searched for the word. Arrogant, he supplied with a rueful smile. I was going to say driven, but yes, that too. A hint of warmth touched her expression. I like who you're becoming, Harlow. The moment hung between them, fragile and precious. Then Charlotte stirred, breaking the spell as they turned their attention to their daughter's waking smile. The party proceeded without incident. Cake smashed, presents opened, photos taken. As evening approached, the guests departed, leaving the house quieter but still under surveillance. FBI agents monitored the perimeter, while Harlow and Eliza prepared Charlotte for bed. No sign of her, Carter reported, checking in before shift change. Maybe the card was just psychological warfare. Or she's watching from somewhere we haven't spotted, Harlow replied, scanning the darkened street from the living room window. After Carter left, Eliza joined him by the window. It doesn't feel over. It's not, he agreed. She won't stop until... A crash from Charlotte's room cut him off. They ran toward the nursery, hearts pounding, to find the window shattered. The baby monitor lay on the floor, playing a recorded loop of Charlotte's breathing while her crib stood empty. For one eternal second, pure horror paralyzed them both. Then Harlow lunged for the window while Eliza screamed Charlotte's name, yanking open the closet, searching desperately beneath the crib. Outside, flashlights bobbed as security personnel converged on the house. Harlow vaulted through the broken window, ignoring the glass that sliced his palms as he landed in the garden below. Running feet, a gate swinging open at the property line, the dark shape of someone carrying a bundle. Stop, he roared, sprinting across the lawn. FBI, freeze! The figure turned, not Vanessa, but a man Harlow had never seen before. He held Charlotte awkwardly, her tiny face contorted in fear. Put her down, Harlow commanded, advancing slowly. Now. The man's eyes darted wildly. She said no one would get hurt. Just take the kid to the meeting point. Give me my daughter, Harlow said, his voice deadly calm despite the thunder of his heart. And I'll make sure you live through this night. Indecision flickered across the man's face. Then Charlotte wailed, a piercing cry that seemed to break whatever resolve he had left. Here! He thrust the baby forward. I didn't sign up for this. Tell them I didn't hurt her. Harlow snatched Charlotte into his arms, backing away as FBI agents swarmed the yard, tackling the abductor to the ground. He turned to find Eliza running toward them, her face a mask of terror and relief. She's okay, he assured her, passing Charlotte into her trembling arms. She's okay. In the chaos that followed, statements, evidence collection, medical examination, one fact emerged clearly. The kidnapper was another pawn in Vanessa's game, a hospital orderly blackmailed into assistance with manufactured evidence of medication theft. She wanted us to follow him, Carter realized as they regrouped in the living room at dawn. He was supposed to lead us to a secondary location. An ambush, Harlow suggested. Or another switch, Carter replied grimly. Get us focused on one direction while she moved in another. The implications chilled them all. Vanessa hadn't just wanted Charlotte. She'd wanted to separate her from her protectors, creating maximum vulnerability. We need a better plan, Harlow insisted. This passive approach isn't working. Carter hesitated. There may be another option. Our technicians found something on her cloud storage that we haven't disclosed publicly. A detailed journal outlining what she calls her magnum opus, a final research study involving... He paused, clearly uncomfortable. Involving what? Eliza demanded. The systematic observation of family bonds under extreme medical duress, Carter finished reluctantly. She describes using a child, specifically your child, as the primary subject, documenting how parental attachment influences medical decision-making. Horror washed over Harlow. She planned this from the beginning? Even before Charlotte was born? It appears so. The journal entries date back to her first weeks at Sacramento Memorial. How do we use this? Eliza asked, her arms tightening protectively around Charlotte. Carter exchanged a glance with Harlow. We give her what she wants, on our terms. 3 days later, Harlow sat alone in a private room at Sacramento Memorial's pediatric wing. Charlotte lay in the hospital crib beside him, apparently suffering from a severe respiratory infection that had developed suddenly and required immediate admission. The story had been carefully crafted and strategically leaked. Charlotte Reed hospitalized with concerning symptoms. Specialist consultations underway. Parents devastated and desperate. In reality, Charlotte was perfectly healthy, temporarily placed in the secure room after a brief, harmless sedation to mimic illness for the benefit of hospital security cameras. A decoy baby doll occupied the crib when needed for nursing checks, while the real Charlotte remained with Eliza in an adjacent secure room, monitored by armed agents. Hospital staff believed they were participating in a controlled FBI operation. Most knew only that a high-risk patient required extra security measures. Only Chief Donovan knew the full details. For 2 days, Harlow maintained the charade. Haggard appearance, worried consultations with doctors, tearful phone calls in the hallway. Then, on the 3rd night, his vigilance was rewarded. "Dr. Reed?" A soft voice woke him from feigned sleep in the bedside chair. "I'm Dr. Wilson, the new pediatric pulmonologist." Harlow blinked, pretending to orient himself, while his heart raced. The woman before him bore little resemblance to Vanessa Thorne. Red hair, glasses, different bone structure achieved through sophisticated prosthetics, but those green eyes remained unchanged. "How is she doing?" Vanessa asked, approaching the crib where the remarkably lifelike doll lay beneath blankets, a small oxygen mask covering its face. "The antibiotics don't seem to be working," Harlow replied, following the script. "Her oxygen levels keep dropping." Vanessa checked the monitors, which had been programmed to display concerning vital signs. "I'd like to try an experimental treatment protocol. I've had success with similar cases." "Anything," Harlow said desperately. "We'll try anything." She withdrew a vial and syringe from her lab coat pocket. "This is a specialized antibiotic compound. It's not yet FDA approved, but in compassionate use cases." As she prepared the injection, Harlow tensed, waiting for the predetermined signal. The moment she inserted the needle into the IV port, Carter's voice came through the tiny earpiece he wore. "We have her on camera administering an unauthorized substance. Move in now." "What's in that syringe?" Harlow demanded, standing abruptly. Vanessa froze, something shifting in her expression as she realized she'd been caught. But instead of panic, a slow smile spread across her face. "You're more clever than I gave you credit for," she said softly. "Though not clever enough." She glanced toward the crib. "That's not Charlotte." "No," Harlow confirmed, "and you're under arrest. Again." She laughed lightly. "Doubtful. You see, I anticipated this possibility. That's why I took precautions. The FBI has the building surrounded. There's no escape this time." "I don't need to escape," she replied with disturbing confidence. "I just need leverage." She pressed a button on what appeared to be a pager at her hip. In approximately 30 seconds, the real Charlotte will begin experiencing respiratory distress. The substance was administered through her breathing route about an hour ago, with a delayed release mechanism. Horror washed over Harlow. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Check on her." "I'll wait." With shaking hands, Harlow activated his comlink. "Carter, check Charlotte now." Seconds stretched like hours before Carter's voice returned, tight with urgency. "She's in distress. Turning blue." Medical team responding. Vanessa watched the color drain from Harlow's face with clinical interest. Fascinating reaction. The parental instinct is so powerful, isn't it? "Now here's what happens next. You will escort me safely from this hospital. In return, I'll tell you exactly what compound was used and its antidote." "You're insane," Harlow whispered. "I prefer dedicated researcher," she corrected. "Your daughter's symptoms will worsen rapidly. Without the antidote, permanent brain damage begins in approximately 12 minutes. Death follows shortly after." The room's door burst open as FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Vanessa didn't even flinch. "Time is ticking, Dr. Reed," she said calmly. "What's your decision?" In that moment, everything crystallized for Harlow. The months of manipulation, the calculated cruelty, the absolute certainty that Vanessa would never stop. Something inside him shifted, a fundamental reordering of priorities. "Take her into custody," he instructed the agents. "I need 2 minutes alone with her." "Dr. Reed, we can't," Carter began. "My daughter is dying," Harlow shouted, real fear breaking through his composure. 2 minutes, that's all I need." After a tense standoff, Carter nodded reluctantly. 2 minutes. We'll be right outside. When the door closed, Harlow advanced on Vanessa with cold purpose. Tell me the antidote. After we leave together, she insisted. That's not happening. His voice was deadly calm now. You poisoned my baby. You manipulated my life. You nearly destroyed my marriage. No more games. This isn't a game, Harlow. This is science. The ultimate experiment in parental decision-making under duress. Her eyes gleamed with disturbing intensity. What will you sacrifice to save your child? Everything, he answered honestly. Except my soul. Before she could respond, he lunged forward, pinning her against the wall with one arm across her throat. Just enough pressure to demonstrate his seriousness without cutting off her air. Last chance, he warned. The antidote. You won't hurt me, she gasped, still confident. You're a healer, remember? First, do no harm. I'm a father first, he corrected. His free hand found the syringe she'd dropped during the confrontation. And I think it's time you experienced your own research firsthand. Fear flickered in her eyes for the first time. You're bluffing. Am I? He pressed the needle against her neck. Tell me what you gave Charlotte, or whatever is in this syringe goes into your carotid artery. Right now. Their gazes locked in silent battle. Then, remarkably, Vanessa laughed, a genuine sound of surprise and appreciation. Methylxanthine derivative, she said finally. Combined with a synthetic neurotoxin, the antidote is a specialized calcium channel blocker with atropine. More specific, he demanded, increasing pressure on the needle. Formulas in my left pocket. Antidote instructions in the right. When he hesitated, she added, I never intended to kill her, Harlow. That wasn't the point of the experiment. I just needed to see how far you'd go. Keeping her pinned, he retrieved the papers. The formula was complex but made pharmacological sense. The antidote instructions were detailed and precise. Why Charlotte? He asked, the question that had haunted him for months. Why my family? Because you were perfect, she replied simply. Brilliant but flawed, dedicated yet corruptible. I needed to understand what happens when excellence meets its breaking point. She studied his face with clinical detachment. And now I know. He released her abruptly, backing toward the door with the papers clutched in his hand. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Perhaps, she acknowledged, but my research will continue. Others will carry on what I started. There are no others, he said with sudden certainty. This was always about you, your ego, your need for control. Something flashed across her face, anger perhaps at being so easily read. Before she could respond, Harlow opened the door, calling for Carter. I have the antidote formula, he explained rapidly as agents restrained Vanessa. We need a pharmacist immediately. As he rushed toward the room where Eliza waited with their struggling daughter, Vanessa called after him. It was never personal, Harlow. It was for science. He didn't look back. The next hours passed in a blur of medical intervention. The hospital's top pharmacists prepared the antidote while Charlotte's condition deteriorated. Eliza, hollow-eyed with fear, watched as their daughter fought for each breath. It's working, Dr. Ma, Lancaster announced finally, monitoring Charlotte's improving oxygen levels. She's stabilizing. Relief crashed through Harlow in waves. Beside him, Eliza sobbed quietly, her hand gripping his with bruising force. He hadn't let go since entering the room, hadn't been able to, as if their combined strength might somehow flow into their daughter. She'll need observation for at least 48 hours, Lancaster continued, but I expect a full recovery. Later, as Charlotte slept peacefully, her color restored and breathing normal, Harlow and Eliza sat beside her crib in exhausted silence. I threatened to kill her, Harlow admitted finally, needing Eliza to know everything. Vanessa, I held a syringe to her throat and meant it. Instead of shock or condemnation, Eliza nodded slowly. I would have done the same. What does that make us? Parents, she answered simply, willing to cross any line to protect our child. The truth of it resonated between them, a fundamental understanding that transcended their complicated history. When I thought we might lose her, Eliza continued, her voice breaking, nothing else mattered. Not the past, not what you did, not my anger. Nothing, I know, he whispered. She turned to face him fully. I've been holding on to the hurt, using it as a shield, telling myself I couldn't trust you again. Her eyes filled with tears. But tonight, watching you fight for her, The way you fought for us both these past months, I realized something. What? I never stopped loving you, Harlow. Not through any of it. The words washed over him like absolution. Not forgiveness exactly, that would take more time, but acknowledgement of the truth that had sustained them through the darkness. A love damaged, but not destroyed. I don't deserve you, he said honestly. Either of you. It's not about deserving, she replied, wisdom in her exhaustion. It's about choosing every day, and I choose our family. I choose to try again. As dawn broke over the hospital, Charlotte woke briefly, reaching tiny fingers toward both her parents. In her innocent gaze, Harlow saw not just their future, but the path to redemption, not through medical brilliance or professional success, but through the simple, profound act of being present for those who mattered most. Outside the room, FBI agents led Vanessa Thorne away in handcuffs, her research permanently halted, her experiments finally exposed. The woman who had nearly destroyed everything Harlow loved had succeeded only in revealing what was truly worth fighting for. The federal courthouse hummed with anticipation on a crisp autumn morning, 14 months after Charlotte's poisoning. Media trucks lined the street, reporters jostling for position as Harlow and Eliza approached the entrance, hands linked in quiet solidarity. The trial of Vanessa Thorne, or Victoria Lassiter, as court documents now formally identified her, had captivated the nation for weeks. "Ready?" Harlow asked, pausing at the massive doors. Eliza squeezed his hand. "As I'll ever be." Inside, the courtroom fell silent as they took their seats in the front row. Chief Donovan nodded solemnly from across the aisle, his testimony the previous day having detailed the hospital's security failures and subsequent reforms. Agent Carter sat beside the federal prosecutor, reviewing notes for today's proceedings, the final arguments before jury deliberation. When guards escorted Vanessa in, Harlow felt Eliza tense beside him. Despite the prison jumpsuit and lack of cosmetic enhancements, Vanessa maintained an unsettling poise. She caught Harlow's eye briefly, the ghost of a smile playing at her lips before she faced forward, shoulders squared with clinical detachment rather than remorse. "All rise," the bailiff announced as Judge Miranda Holden entered the courtroom. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating in its methodical presentation. 17 counts of attempted murder, 3 successful homicides across multiple states, countless instances of identity fraud, and the unprecedented charge of medical terrorism that prosecutors had fought to include. "The defendant before you is not merely a criminal," the prosecutor concluded, "but a predator who weaponized medicine itself, turning healing into harm, care into catastrophe, with calculated precision that can only be described as evil in its purest form." Vanessa's defense team attempted to construct a narrative of mental illness, arguing diminished capacity and delusional disorder. "My client genuinely believed her research would ultimately save lives," her attorney insisted. Her methods, while clearly unlawful and deeply misguided, stemmed from a mind fractured by perfectionism and professional pressure. Judge Holden instructed the jury before dismissal, her voice grave as she emphasized the burden of proof and the significance of their decision. As they filed out, Harlow noticed one juror glance at Charlotte's photo in the evidence display, her expression hardening with maternal anger. "How long do you think they'll deliberate?" Eliza asked as they left the courtroom, dodging reporters' questions with practiced silence. "Not long," Harlow predicted. "The evidence is overwhelming." He was right. Just 4 hours later, they received the call. The jury had reached a verdict. The courtroom felt even more crowded as they reassembled, tension thick in the air. Vanessa sat unnaturally still as the jury foreman stood, unfolding the paper that would determine her fate. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree of Charlotte Eliza Reed, we find the defendant guilty. Eliza's hand found Harlow's, gripping tightly. On the count of attempted murder in the first degree of Eliza Catherine Reed, we find the defendant guilty. One by one, the guilty verdicts continued, each one another brick in the wall that would separate Vanessa Thorne from society for the remainder of her life. When the final count was announced, Harlow expected to feel triumph or at least relief. Instead, he felt strangely hollow, justice served but nothing restored. Judge Holden's sentencing was swift and uncompromising, consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole, to be served in a maximum security federal medical facility with specialized containment for high-risk offenders. As Vanessa was led away, she turned suddenly, eyes locking with Harlow's. "It was worth it," she said clearly, her voice carrying in the stunned courtroom. "Every moment, every consequence, the data was worth it." The guards pulled her through the side door, but her words lingered, chilling in their conviction. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed them with questions. "How does it feel knowing she'll never be free again? Do you believe justice was served? Dr. Reed, will you attempt to rebuild your medical career?" Harlow faced the cameras, Eliza steady beside him. "Today isn't about Vanessa Thorne," he said firmly. "It's about the survivors, those who lived and those who didn't. It's about acknowledging that even our most trusted institutions can be infiltrated by darkness." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "And it's about remembering that healing takes many forms, not all of them found in operating rooms." 3 weeks after the verdict, Harlow stood before the California Medical Board, his future as a physician hanging in the balance. The reinstatement hearing had been postponed multiple times during the investigation and trial, but now, with legal proceedings complete, his professional fate would finally be decided. "Dr. Reed," began Dr. Eleanor Patel, the board chairperson, "your case presents unprecedented complexities. While you were not directly complicit in Dr. Thorne's crimes, your personal involvement with her demonstrated at minimum a severe lapse in professional judgment." Harlow nodded, accepting the assessment without defense. "However," she continued, "your cooperation with federal investigators, your testimony which helped secure convictions, and the extraordinary circumstances must also be considered." For nearly 2 hours, the board questioned him exhaustively about his relationship with Vanessa, his absence during critical medical emergencies, his understanding of professional ethics, and his plans should his license be reinstated. "I won't ask for special consideration," Harlow said finally, when invited to make a closing statement. "My actions, while not criminal, fell far short of the standards we should expect from physicians. I betrayed my oath in ways large and small." He paused, gathering thoughts he'd rehearsed for months. "If you choose to reinstate my license, I won't return to neurosurgery. That chapter of my life is closed. Instead, I've been volunteering at the Eastside Community Clinic, working with addiction medicine specialists. It's where I believe I can do the most good now, helping people rebuild lives shattered by substances not unlike those Vanessa weaponized against her victims." Dr. Patel studied him thoughtfully. "And if we deny reinstatement? Then I'll continue volunteering in non-clinical roles, pursuing a master's in public health policy I've already begun, and working to improve hospital security protocols through the foundation my wife and I established." His voice remained steady. "Either way, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to balance the scales." The board deliberated for less than 30 minutes before delivering their decision. Conditional reinstatement with 5 years probation, quarterly reviews, ethics training, and permanent restriction from surgical specialties. "Not exactly a triumph," he told Eliza that evening, as they watched Charlotte, now 2 years old, stacking blocks on their living room floor. "It's something better," Eliza replied. "A second chance with appropriate boundaries." She smiled at their daughter's concentrated expression as she carefully placed another block, something we know a little about. Their new home in Sacramento's River Park neighborhood represented physical distance from painful memories, a fresh start in a modest craftsman with a backyard garden Eliza had planted during her sabbatical from teaching. After the trial, she'd returned to the university part-time, her literature classes now incorporating medical ethics themes that sparked passionate student discussions. Their marriage, once shattered, had been reassembled piece by piece, not into its original form but something different, stronger in the broken places as Hemingway might have described it. Weekly therapy continued, now focused less on trauma and more on growth. They'd learned to argue productively, to voice fears before they festered, to forgive imperfections without forgetting lessons. Chief Donovan called today, Harlow mentioned, helping Charlotte balance a precariously leaning tower. The hospital security program we developed is being implemented at 3 more facilities. That's wonderful, Eliza said. His testimony really made a difference in how hospitals are approaching staff verification. Marcus Donovan had emerged as an unexpected ally through the darkest periods. After the initial arrest, he'd faced his own professional reckoning, acknowledging systemic failures while fighting to implement reforms. Rather than retire in disgrace, he'd channeled his considerable influence into hospital safety advocacy, often consulting with Harlow on vulnerability assessments. He also mentioned Dr. Lancaster is considering running for the medical board next year, Harlow added. Sarah Lancaster had remained a steadfast friend to them both. Her unwavering support during Eliza's recovery and her expert testimony during the trial had cemented her reputation as not just a skilled physician, but a person of exceptional character. She'd be excellent, Eliza agreed, compassionate but uncompromising. As they prepared dinner together, moving around the kitchen in the synchronized dance of a couple who had relearned intimacy, Harlow was struck by the ordinary miracle of their survival. Not just physical survival, but emotional. The preservation of love through circumstances designed to destroy it. I saw Nina's Facebook post, he mentioned, chopping vegetables while Eliza seasoned chicken. She's really enjoying Seattle. Nina's relocation 6 months earlier had marked a significant turning point in their family dynamics. Initially, Charlotte and Eliza's fiercest protector and Harlow's harshest critic, Nina had gradually softened as she witnessed his committed redemption efforts. Her job offer in Seattle had come with mixed emotions, protective concern for leaving her sister, yet recognition that the family had stabilized. She's thinking of visiting for Christmas, Eliza replied. Said she might even be civil to you this time. The teasing smile she offered carried none of the old bitterness. After dinner, with Charlotte bathed and tucked into bed, they sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies blink in the gathering dusk. These quiet moments, once filled with awkward silence or careful conversation, now felt comfortable, a shared stillness between people who no longer needed words to bridge every gap. I have news, Eliza said finally, turning slightly to face him. I've been offered the department chair position, starting next fall. Eliza, that's incredible. His pride was immediate and genuine. You deserve it more than anyone. It means more responsibilities, longer hours sometimes. We'll make it work, he assured her. My clinic schedule is flexible. She nodded, hesitating before continuing. There's something else, something I've been thinking about. Her serious tone made him sit straighter. What is it? I think... She paused, uncertainty flickering across her face. I think I might be ready to try for another baby. The words hung between them, loaded with implications beyond their simple meaning. Having another child meant not just expanding their family, but final confirmation that she believed in their future together, that she trusted him completely with the most precious responsibility imaginable. Are you sure? He asked quietly. After everything, because of everything, she corrected. We've been tested in ways most couples never face. We've seen the worst in each other and chosen to stay anyway. Her hand found his in the gathering darkness. And Charlotte should have a sibling, someone to share the craziness of having us as parents. He laughed softly at that, emotion tightening his throat. I would be honored, he said simply. Terrified, but honored. The nationwide hospital security conference in Chicago marked the 2-year anniversary of Vanessa's conviction. Harlow stood at the podium facing administrators, security directors, and medical staff from across the country. His presentation on Predators in White Coats, Lessons from the Thorn Case, drawing a capacity crowd. The most dangerous threats often come from those we're conditioned to trust implicitly, he explained, advancing through slides detailing Vanessa's methods. She exploited not just security vulnerabilities, but our professional arrogance, our unwillingness to question colleagues who project competence and authority. From the audience, Agent Carter nodded in agreement. Now heading the FBI's specialized healthcare crimes division, he'd helped develop many of the protocols Harlow was presenting. The foundation we established has identified 17 attempted infiltrations of medical facilities by individuals with falsified credentials in the past 18 months alone, Harlow continued. Each was caught because someone questioned something that didn't feel right, a reference that couldn't be verified, employment gaps that didn't align, expertise that seemed inconsistent. After the presentation, Carter approached him at the reception. Impressive work, he commented, shaking Harlow's hand. The registry database is saving lives. The Medical Identity Verification Registry had been Harlow's most significant contribution, a secure, centralized system allowing instantaneous credential verification across state lines and institutions. Any news from the facility? Harlow asked quietly, referring to the medical prison where Vanessa was incarcerated. Carter shook his head. Model prisoner, apparently. Spends most of her time writing. They monitor everything, of course. Writing what? Memoirs, she claims, though given her history of encoding research in seemingly innocent documents, they're scrutinizing every word. A chill ran through Harlow, despite the crowded, warm room. You don't think she's still conducting research somehow? I think Victoria Lassiter will never stop being who she is, Carter replied carefully. But she's contained. That's what matters. Later that night, Harlow video called home, smiling as Charlotte's face filled the screen, Eliza helping her hold the tablet. "Daddy, I drawed you a picture." Charlotte held up a colorful scribble that might have been a person or possibly a particularly abstract giraffe. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," he assured her. "I'll hang it in my hotel room tonight." "When you coming home?" she demanded, the slight lisp on her S sounds making his heart swell. "Tomorrow night. And I brought you a surprise." "A big surprise or little surprise?" "Medium," he laughed. "How was your day?" While Charlotte launched into a detailed account of preschool adventures, Eliza smiled in the background, occasionally translating particularly incomprehensible sections. The ordinary conversation was extraordinary to him, precious normalcy they'd fought so hard to reclaim. When Charlotte eventually relinquished the tablet for bedtime, Eliza returned to the screen. "How did your presentation go?" she asked. "Really well. Several hospital systems are implementing the verification protocols immediately." "I'm proud of you," she said simply, turning what happened into something that helps others. After ending the call, Harlow stood at his hotel window overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. 3 years ago, he would have been in a luxury suite, scheduling complex surgeries between conferences, his worth measured in successful operations and academic citations. Now, he lived in a modest home, worked at a community clinic, treating addiction patients, and measured success in more intangible ways. Charlotte's trust when she reached for his hand, Eliza's smile when she caught him watching her, the slow rebuilding of a life he'd nearly destroyed. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Lancaster. "Just heard from the lab. Congratulations, Dad X2. Don't tell Eliza I told you. She wants to surprise you tomorrow." Joy surged through him, bright and overwhelming. Another child, another chance to get it right from the beginning. The letter arrived 3 days after he returned from Chicago, official FBI letterhead marking it as urgent. Inside, a brief message from Agent Carter requested a secure video meeting as soon as possible. "What's this about?" Harlow asked when Carter's face appeared on his laptop screen that evening. "We've had a development," Carter replied, his expression grave. "Regarding Thorne." Harlow felt Eliza stiffen beside him on the couch. "What kind of development?" 2 days ago, a routine cell check found her unresponsive. Apparent suicide. She'd somehow extracted chemicals from art therapy supplies and created a compound. Carter paused. "She's dead, Harlow." "It's confirmed this time. I personally observed the autopsy." The news should have brought relief, closure. Instead, Harlow felt a cold unease. That doesn't make sense. Suicide wasn't her style. "People change in prison," Carter suggested. 2 years in isolation, knowing she'd never practice medicine again. "No." Harlow shook his head firmly. "She wouldn't give up control like that. Whatever happened, it wasn't suicide." "There's more," Carter admitted reluctantly. "She left a letter addressed to you. It's been thoroughly examined. No chemical agents, no hidden codes we could detect. What does it say?" "We don't know. It's sealed. Prison policy allows final correspondence to be private if it passes security screening." Carter hesitated. "You don't have to read it." But they all knew he would. Some compulsions ran too deep to resist. The letter arrived by courier the following day, a single page of precise handwriting, the paper institutional beige. "Dear Harlow, by the time you read this, my physical form will have served its purpose. Don't mistake this for defeat. It's merely transition to the next phase. You were my finest subject, you know. Even now, 2 years after our experiment concluded, you remain changed by my influence. More cautious, more humble, more aware of vulnerability. I altered you at the molecular level of your being. But my greatest work was never about you. It was always about legacy. While you've been rebuilding your small life, I've been building something far more significant. I told you once that others would continue my research. You didn't believe me. Your arrogance, diminished but never extinguished, couldn't conceive of a scenario where you weren't the central figure in our narrative. 27 medical students across 9 universities have received portions of my methodology, each believing they alone hold the key to revolutionary medical insights. 27 brilliant minds, cultivated through years of correspondence, each executing one fragment of a greater design. The beauty is that none know the others exist. None understand the full scope. Like a virus distributed across multiple hosts, my work continues its replication cycle. You won't find them, you won't even know where to look. But someday, when medical literature begins reporting fascinating new insights into human physiological responses to specific stressors, insights that save far more lives than my methods ever risked, you'll recognize my fingerprints. This was never about cruelty, Harlow. It was about advancing understanding through methods conventional ethics forbids. History judges pioneers harshly until the value of their discoveries becomes undeniable. Take care of Charlotte. She was, after all, subject zero in our most important study. In many ways, her existence is the cornerstone of all that follows. With scientific admiration, Victoria Vanessa Lassiter P.S. Do give my regards to Dr. Chen in pathology. We had such illuminating conversations during my final preparations. Harlow's blood ran cold as he finished reading. He immediately called Carter, who promised to investigate the mentioned pathologist while placing their family under temporary protection again. That night, after securing doors and windows, checking Charlotte's sleeping form repeatedly, Harlow and Eliza sat in tense silence at their kitchen table. "Do you think it's true?" Eliza finally asked. "About the students?" "I don't know," he admitted. "It could be one final manipulation, her way of ensuring she haunts us forever. Or it could be real." Eliza's hand rested protectively over her still flat stomach. "Either way, she's still controlling us, isn't she? Making us fear, making us doubt." The truth of this observation struck Harlow with painful clarity. Even in death, Vanessa maintained her grip on their peace of mind. "We can't live like this," he said suddenly, looking over our shoulders, suspecting everyone, waiting for the next threat. "That's not living. It's existing in her shadow." Eliza watched him carefully. "What's the alternative?" "Choosing differently. Choosing to believe in the fundamental goodness of most people, while remaining vigilantly protective of those we love." He reached across the table for her hand. "Choosing not to let fear of what might happen prevent us from embracing what is happening. Our family, our work, our second chance." Something shifted in Eliza's expression, determination replacing fear. "She doesn't get to win," she said firmly. "Not again, not ever." "No," he agreed, "she doesn't." As they embraced, holding each other against the uncertainty Vanessa had tried to seed, Harlow felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine peace. Not because the threat had disappeared, but because he finally understood that living in fear was its own form of imprisonment, one he refused to accept any longer. Whatever came next, they would face it together, wiser from their ordeal, stronger in their commitment, unwilling to surrender another moment of their reclaimed life to the shadow of Vanessa Thorne. 3 months later, as summer heat gave way to autumn crispness, the Reed family gathered in their backyard for a small celebration, the official launch of the Hospital Security Initiative, now adopted by over 50 medical centers nationwide. Charlotte chased fireflies across the lawn, while colleagues and friends congratulated Harlow and Eliza on the program's success. Chief Donovan, recently retired but still actively involved in the initiative, raised a toast to turning tragedy into triumph. As twilight deepened, Harlow found himself momentarily alone by the garden fence, watching his pregnant wife laugh with Dr. Lancaster while Charlotte demonstrated her newest dance moves. "She would have appreciated the irony, you know," Agent Carter said quietly, appearing beside him with a glass of lemonade. "Her actions ultimately making hospitals safer than ever." Harlow nodded thoughtfully. "Have you found any evidence of her claims about the students?" "Nothing conclusive," Carter admitted. "We've monitored publications, cross-referenced with prison visitor logs, correspondence records. If they exist, they're deeply hidden. Or they don't exist at all," Harlow suggested. "One final manipulation." "Perhaps." Carter didn't sound entirely convinced. "Either way, the systems you've helped implement would catch similar patterns now before they developed." As Carter moved away to speak with other guests, Harlow continued watching his family. The visible evidence of resilience, forgiveness, and second chances. Whatever shadows Vanessa had tried to cast over their future had been met with light. Not through denial of darkness, but through the deliberate choice to keep moving toward brightness. Eliza caught his eye across the yard, smiling as she placed a hand on her growing belly. The future they'd rebuilt together, imperfect but authentic, hard-won but cherished, stood as testament to the power of choosing love over fear, growth over bitterness, forward motion over paralysis. In medical school, Harlow had learned that healing rarely restores tissue to its original state. Instead, the body creates something new in response to injury. Scar tissue, different but functional, forever marking the wound's location while allowing life to continue. Their lives had formed such scar tissue, visible reminders of damage survived, permanent markers of lessons learned, evidence of both harm and healing. Not perfect, but purposeful. Not unmarked, but unbowed. Charlotte ran to him suddenly, launching herself into his arms with complete trust. "Daddy, look," she exclaimed, opening her palm to reveal a captured firefly, its light blinking gently against her skin. "Careful," he reminded her softly. "Living things are fragile." She nodded solemnly, then opened her fingers, watching with wonder as the tiny light rose into the gathering darkness and disappeared among countless others illuminating the summer night. In that ordinary moment of a child's discovery, Harlow found the perfect metaphor for their journey: the acknowledgement of vulnerability, the necessary care in handling precious things, and the ultimate freedom that comes from releasing what cannot be controlled. Behind them, unnoticed as evening shadows lengthened across the yard, a woman in dark glasses observed the gathering from the street, her green eyes calculating as she made notes in a small leather journal before walking unhurriedly away. 5 years later. "Mom, Dad, look what I found!" Charlotte Reed's excited voice carried across the Stanford University Medical Center courtyard, where her parents sat enjoying coffee on a sunny April morning. At 7, she was all gangly limbs and boundless energy, her auburn hair, Eliza's genetic contribution, streaming behind her as she ran toward them, clutching something in her hands. "Careful with your brother," Harlow cautioned, as she nearly collided with 3-year-old Ethan, who was methodically arranging stones in a circle nearby. Charlotte skidded to a stop, then proceeded more carefully, opening her palms to reveal a monarch butterfly with a damaged wing. "It needs help," she declared with absolute certainty. "Not everything can be fixed, sweetheart," Eliza began gently. "But some things can," Charlotte insisted with that Reed determination. "Dad says sometimes all you need is the right intervention at the right time." Harlow met Eliza's eyes over their daughter's head, sharing a silent moment of recognition. Charlotte had inherited more than his blue eyes. She'd absorbed his medical mindset, his belief in possibility even when odds seemed insurmountable. "Tell you what," he suggested, carefully helping her cup the butterfly. "Let's find a box in my office. We can take it to Dr. Sandra at the Butterfly Pavilion after my lecture." Stanford's prestigious medical school had recruited Harlow 3 years earlier, not as a surgeon, but as professor of medical ethics and healthcare safety. His course on institutional vulnerabilities and patient protection had become mandatory for all medical students, drawing from his uniquely personal understanding of how systems designed to heal could be weaponized. "Don't be late," Eliza reminded him, checking her watch. "The symposium committee needs your final remarks by 2. As director of Stanford's newly established Center for Medical Humanities, Eliza had organized this weekend's interdisciplinary conference on narrative medicine and patient experience. Her literature background had found unexpected application in helping healthcare providers understand patient perspectives through narrative frameworks. "Wouldn't miss it," Harlow promised, kissing her cheek before leading Charlotte toward the medical school building where his office overlooked the quad. Watching them go, Eliza marveled at how fundamentally their lives had transformed. The pain hadn't disappeared. It had alchemized into purpose. Their shared trauma had become the foundation for work that was changing medical culture, making it safer, more empathetic, more accountable. That evening, after the children were asleep in their hotel suite, Harlow and Eliza stood on the balcony overlooking San Francisco Bay, the city lights reflecting across the water. "Dr. Garcia asked about the book again," Eliza mentioned, referring to the conference keynote speaker. "Said we have a unique perspective worth sharing." The idea of writing their story had surfaced periodically over the years. Publishers had approached them repeatedly, offering substantial advances. They'd always declined. "Maybe it's time," Harlow said unexpectedly, surprising them both. Charlotte's old enough to understand some version of what happened, and the systems we helped implement have prevented at least 6 confirmed cases of medical identity fraud in the past year alone. Eliza studied his profile, noting the silver appearing at his temples, distinguished rather than aging. At 45, Harlow carried himself differently than the arrogant surgeon she'd first fallen in love with. Experience had humbled him, deepened him. "What changed your mind?" she asked. "Something Charlotte said today," he admitted. "When I was explaining about the butterfly's damaged wing, she asked if it was broken but still beautiful. That phrase, it captured everything somehow. Broken but still beautiful," Eliza repeated softly. "That could be our title." Their quiet moment was interrupted by Harlow's phone buzzing. He checked the screen, his expression shifting subtly. "Carter," Eliza guessed. Harlow nodded. "Quarterly update. Robert Carter, now Deputy Director of the FBI's Healthcare Crimes Division, maintained regular contact, partly professional, partly the unique bond formed through shared trauma. His team continued monitoring medical research publications for anything matching Vanessa's methodologies, a vigilance that had gradually shifted from urgent to routine as years passed without incident. "Anything concerning?" Eliza asked when he finished the brief call. "No, just routine checks." He hesitated. He mentioned they're finally decommissioning the special monitoring program. 5 years, no suspicious patterns, budget constraints. "How do you feel about that?" Harlow considered the question carefully, relieved, mostly, that her final threat was just that, a threat. Empty words from someone who couldn't stand losing control, yet something in his tone suggested lingering uncertainty. "But," Eliza prompted. "But sometimes I still wonder," he admitted, "about Dr. Chen in pathology, the one she mentioned in her letter. The FBI never found any connection. He had perfect credentials, perfect references. Too perfect? Maybe." Harlow shrugged. "Or maybe I've just internalized her paranoia, seeing ghosts where none exist." Eliza slipped her arm through his, leaning against his shoulder. "A reasonable response to what we experienced. The butterfly effect," he murmured. "What? In chaos theory, how small changes can create massive consequences over time. One beating wing affecting weather patterns continents away." He gazed out at the darkened bay. "Vanessa was that butterfly for us. One chance encounter that altered everything. Not just destructively," Eliza reminded him. "Look at what we've built from those ruins." Their professional accomplishments were significant. Published papers, implemented protocols, lives demonstrably saved through their advocacy. But the truly miraculous reconstruction had been personal. Their marriage, stronger now than before its near destruction. Their family, expanded through conscious choice rather than expectation. Their individual growth, each finding purpose that transcended previous definitions of success. "I have something to show you," Eliza said suddenly, retrieving her tablet from inside. She opened a document titled simply, "Letter to Charlotte." "What's this?" "Something I've been working on, for Charlotte to read when she's older. The truth about what happened, but also what we learned." She handed him the tablet. "I'd like your perspective." Harlow began reading, emotions shifting across his face as he absorbed Eliza's carefully crafted narrative. Not a sensationalized account of Vanessa's crimes, but a deeply personal exploration of fallibility, consequence, and redemption. "My dearest Charlotte, by the time you read this, you'll likely have heard rumors or partial truths about events that occurred before you were truly old enough to remember. This is my attempt to give you the complete story, not to burden you, but because understanding where you come from, including the darkest chapters, is your birthright. Your father and I have crafted a life that might appear untroubled to outsiders, but our foundation was nearly destroyed before it was properly built. The strongest structures often rise from previously collapsed ruins, using the same materials, but with greater wisdom about weight-bearing walls and stress points. Before you were born, your father made a terrible mistake. He allowed himself to be drawn towards someone destructive, someone who recognized his vulnerabilities and exploited them systematically. In doing so, he betrayed not just me, but himself, the person he believed himself to be. I won't pretend this didn't nearly destroy us. The pain was shattering, magnified by genuine danger you and I both faced because of choices he made. There were moments I thought forgiveness impossible, reconciliation unimaginable. What I want you to understand is this: forgiveness wasn't a single moment, but thousands of small choices made daily, sometimes hourly. It wasn't about forgetting, but about refusing to let the past dictate our future. Your father rebuilt my trust, brick by brick, day by day, not through grand gestures, but through consistent presence, through honest acknowledgement of his failings, through the painful, necessary work of understanding why he'd been vulnerable to manipulation in the first place. We are not the same people who weathered that storm. We are, I believe, better, more conscious in our choices, more grateful for ordinary moments, more aware that what appears solid can crumble without proper care. You and your brother grew from this transformed foundation. The love that created you was not naive or untested, but clear-eyed and deliberate. You were chosen by parents who had seen the worst in each other and decided with full awareness to build something beautiful anyway. Someday, you will face your own moral crossroads. You will make mistakes that seem unforgivable. You will be tempted to hide rather than face the consequences of your choices. When that moment comes, remember our story. Remember that redemption exists, not as an entitlement, but as a possibility created through genuine accountability and the hard work of change. Your father is the bravest person I know, not because he never faltered, but because when he did, he found the courage to rebuild from ashes without excuses. And you, my brilliant girl, carry within you both our strengths and our hard-won wisdom. Whatever challenges you face, know that you come from a love that survived its own near death, transformed through fire into something more durable than its original form. With boundless love, Mom. When Harlow looked up, his eyes shimmered. This is, he struggled for words, extraordinarily generous. It's truthful, Eliza replied simply, and truth is always more complex than villains and heroes. He handed back the tablet, then reached for her hand, tracing the familiar contours of her wedding ring. Not the original diamond he'd given her in another lifetime, but a simple band of platinum they'd chosen together when renewing their vows on their 10th anniversary. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Choosing to stay, to rebuild. It was a question he'd never directly asked, though it had lingered between them through years of reconstruction. No, she answered, without hesitation. Not because what happened wasn't devastating, but because what we created afterward has meaning precisely because it wasn't inevitable or easy. She squeezed his hand. The most valuable things rarely are. As they stood together overlooking the bay, the city lights reflected in the water below like constellations, Harlow felt a completion to their journey he'd never expected to reach. Not an ending. Their story continued with each day, each choice, but a perspective only possible from this distance. Charlotte asked me something else today, he said. Something I didn't know how to answer. What was that? She wanted to know if bad people know they're bad. He shook his head slightly. I've thought about Vanessa so often over the years, trying to understand what drove her. Was it pure sociopathy? Brilliance without ethical constraints? Did she ever recognize the devastation she caused? Some questions don't have answers, Eliza replied. That's part of healing too, accepting that complete understanding isn't always possible. Later that night, as Harlow checked on their sleeping children before bed, Charlotte curled protectively around her rescued butterfly habitat, Ethan clutching his favorite dinosaur. He reflected on the extraordinary journey from that operating room where he'd first met Vanessa Thorne, how one casual introduction had nearly destroyed everything he valued, yet ultimately led to a life with deeper purpose and meaning than he'd ever imagined possible. In Charlotte's soft features, he sometimes caught glimpses of the man he'd been, ambitious, certain, unaware of his own vulnerability. But in her compassion for wounded creatures, her protective instincts toward her brother, he saw Eliza's wisdom, her capacity for forgiveness without forgetting. The butterfly's wing had been successfully stabilized by the pavilion specialist. Not perfect, Charlotte had announced seriously, but functional. It can still fly, just differently. The perfect metaphor for their family, Harlow thought, visibly marked by past damage, yet still capable of flight, of beauty, of purpose. Not despite their scars, but somehow because of them. Across campus in a research laboratory, a young postdoctoral fellow worked late into the night, carefully documenting her observations in a distinctive green leather journal. On the computer screen before her, Charlotte Reed's complete medical history displayed unauthorized data, blood work, developmental markers, genetic sequencing, gathered through various routine screenings over the years. She made another note, then opened a secure messaging platform. Subject 0 continues to develop according to expected parameters. Phase 3 proceeding on schedule. Primary and secondary observe no anomalies. Permission to advance to final protocol? The response came moments later. Permission granted. The Lassiter methodology enters its culmination phase. All participants report similar outcomes across test subjects. Meta-analysis confirms statistical significance. Remember, our work transcends conventional ethics. Future generations will recognize what we've accomplished. The researcher closed the journal, its cover embossed with a small butterfly. The unnoticed signature connecting 17 similar journals in research facilities across the country, each containing one fragment of a methodology too revolutionary, too dangerous, to exist in any single location. The butterfly effect indeed, one woman's twisted vision continuing to ripple outward, touching lives in ways even Harlow and Eliza, with all their hard-won wisdom and vigilance, had never suspected. If this story touched your heart and you want to keep following inspiring and moving stories, be sure to check out our upcoming videos. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on new content that can brighten your journey and provide valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will touch you as well, so click on it now and we'll see you there.